Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you very much for joining me here today. This is your one-stop shop for cryptocurrency analysis, among many other things. Now we're taking a look at Ankr. Once more, I'm going to take a look at this here for my community. Thank you so much for requesting I cover this here today. A 30% increase in the past 24 hours is a nice sign. We like to see that. Furthermore, I'm not a financial advisor. This is for educational purposes only. You should always do your own research. And if you're interested in my signal group, feel free to reference that. The link is in the description below. And that helps you understand good entry points and good signals there essentially to help you, kind of take your research away from the equation and help allow me to do that for you, right? So I like to find good entry points for my community members. So thank you so much again for requesting that I create this, because it's been fantastic. I've gotten so much awesome feedback and support. Thank you. Moving forward, one last thing, I do have a link in the description below for my Telegram community. Please reference that as well. Got a really good group of folks there. You can learn a lot, and that costs you nothing. All right, so let's go ahead and just check it out. Without further ado, let's get to it. All right, folks, let's go ahead and take a look at Ankr. Before we do, if you're new to the channel, we always look at Bitcoin and Ethereum first, just to make sure we have a baseline in the market, we know what's going on, and also understand kind of the correlation between these coins. So first things first, let's take a look at Bitcoin. Now, I always like to look at the 4-hour chart first, just kind of get the best perspective. To me, that's the best time frame to identify, because the moving averages, the 200, which is this purple line here, and the 50, the yellow line, of course, those work the most effective on this time frame. So that's why I like to use that. But generally speaking, we do have a pretty major resistance level still, so we're not out of the woodwork yet, even though Bitcoin did recover and came all the way down to about 28.8. So 28,800 was the lowest point. We definitely broke that 30,000 support. Okay, so unfortunately that did occur. We'll just go ahead and remark that here. And I'd say that 28,800, 29,000 roughly is a pretty good support level still, because we look back here, we can see that in the past, roughly about 29,000. See here, it's right in this range here. It was tested a couple of times in the past, back in January. That was the lowest point in that month, right then and there, right? So 29,000 is essentially a pretty strong support, as well as 30. So even though it broke there, it didn't stay below very long, which is great. Came back up, and we're now looking at about 33,000 even for the current price. Furthermore, we do have a resistance level at about 42,000 and also 41. So I would say that the support levels are 29 and 30, and the resistance is 41 and 42,000. Okay. So I'm just going to mark the major ones here first, just so you know. But that's kind of where we're at here for Bitcoin. All in all, not terrible, considering what happened recently, this major sell-off here. There's a good, strong chance there's a lot of indication in the market that we should see an increase in Bitcoin over the next few weeks. So hopefully all is well. But at this point, not as dire as it was previously for Bitcoin. Definitely recovered, and hopefully, if you're part of my signal group, you would have got a chance to be able to take some gains here in this little section, because there was a good, almost 10% opportunity that I was able to find when Bitcoin hit its lowest point and recovered. So a lot of times you want to try to catch that recovery, once it dips down, because it has a tendency of coming down and back up again. You can get some, I've been able to get a lot of good 3, 5, 10% gains in these little channels here. So just something to be mindful of. Again, I do have a signal group through my Patreon account. Feel free to reference that. That is now live in the description below. Moving on to Ethereum. So taking a look at Ethereum, let's just go ahead and take a peek here. Pretty much a very similar scenario. Again, I've been mentioning this before. Ethereum does have a tendency of mimicking Bitcoin right now. It's not one of those coins you can rely on to do very well when Bitcoin does poorly like it used to. I think the market got so shook up that Ethereum is essentially kind of going sideways, but also obviously kind of a downward sideways momentum here at this point, based on the simple fact that Bitcoin did something similar. So if you're going to try to invest in Ethereum, it's essentially going to be a very similar scenario. So just kind of pay attention to Bitcoin and maybe use that as your catalyst for Ethereum, which you should be doing in most altcoins anyways. Always look at Bitcoin first, which is the reason why we do this, right? But bottom line, we got a 50-day moving average kind of working its way down, as well as a 200. Not much to really say here, except for the fact that we did hit I think we had a most recent low here that we haven't hit in a long time. So roughly, yeah, it's been since March that we've hit that point of 1700. So we hit 1700, it bounced off. And as if you don't know this already, even numbers tend to be really strong support and resistance levels. right? So just keep that in mind if you're ever going to be doing a stop loss or something of that sort. Make sure you set it either above or below that point, because then it'll trigger for you depending on the direction you're heading. But you'll commonly see that very strong support and resistance levels fall on even numbers. Okay. That being said, here for Ethereum, we're not in bad shape. Pretty much par for the course right now, hovering right around 1950. All right, so let's take a look at Ankr. We work our way down to the shorter time frames from the larger. So I think the 1 day time frame is the best thing to identify a big picture, kind of get the macro, and then obviously work your way down to see what's going on. Because the industry leaders are going to be using the 1 day and the 4-hour chart with the simple moving averages. So that's why I like to look at these. And as you can see, the price got rejected here today on the 200. So it tried to pass, got rejected for the 200. It could very well close above, but we need to see this candle close above in order to have any type of indication that it's actually moving above that line. Currently, we are below the 200, so that is, wouldn't say it's a bad thing, but it just means that it's holding right now. Could go sideways for a little bit and then bounce up past that. Again, depending on what Bitcoin does, because Ankr has done very well on its own, but it's also reliant on Bitcoin too. So we look at what, April 17th, let's see how it recovered from that. So this is April 17th right here. Did have a pretty major sell-off. So it's pretty much identical to Bitcoin in this case. And then what, we've got May 19th, this is the China candle, for lack of better terms, as well as May 12th, the Elon candle. So yeah, Ankr is not, moving on its own. It was doing very well when Bitcoin was up in the 50, 60,000 range, and it's gone sideways ever since. Do I feel like Ankr is a good value right now? Absolutely. Yeah, extremely good value. But on the same accord, we're still not out of the woodwork way yet. We want to have some good confirmation before taking entry. But I would say anywhere in the range of, 40 to 70 cents would be a good value, because the average true range, if you see how long it was up here for, even considering all the trouble, it was hovering anywhere between 11 and 15 cents as its true range. So yeah, 7 cents is essentially half its true value, in my opinion. So I think it's definitely worth more, and it would be a sound financial investment to consider Ankr. Of course, it all depends on what happens, but we are expecting for Bitcoin to go on a second bull run before the year's over. That doesn't happen, of course. Ankr will not recover as well, right? But it has proven to do quite well recently, so that's a good sign. But a lot of good stuff here. Let's quickly note, RSI, of course, big surprise there, was down below 30 and is back up. MACD does kind of give us an indication that there might be a crossover here in an upward fashion, basically just implying that there is a long position available for those who are planning to swing trade. Okay, again, the MACD is a good indicator to use when swing trading, because it kind of gives you more of that long-term sentiment if you're using the 1 day and the 4-hour charts. So that is kind of what we're looking at here for Ankr on the 1 day. Let's go ahead and take a peek at the 4-hour. Now, very similar scenario here. You can see how the 50-day moving average has been working as a major resistance. It tried to peak above. In fact, it obviously did, but it wasn't able to close that candle above that time frame. So that basically means that it is still working as a resistance. And then, of course, if we break above, which we should soon, then we're going to see the 200-day moving average working as another potential resistance. So again, still got some ground to cover here, but all in all, it's about par for the course considering how pushed down everything has been. RSI, even with this recent run, is still 45 to 55 range, so nothing crazy there. But here's something to note with the MACD. If you see this little point right here, right at this point where the MACD crossed over, that's the convergence, right? When it converges like that, if you follow the time frame and you look, it's right here. Okay. So commonly when you see a convergence as a swing trader, that's a potential for entry point. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Obviously, it comes with a grain of salt. There's a lot of other factors involved. The fact that the RSI was so low and the price was oversold for so long, that's what causes that to happen too. But just something to understand, when you're swing trading on the 4-hour chart, the MACD probably works the best as far as telling you when an indication of a buy signal is, because it tells you there's a shift in momentum because it's using the 12 and the 26-day moving average. So it's swinging upwards there. That's essentially that convergence that you see, which is how it got its name. All right. So that's the 4-hour chart. Let's look at the 1 hour just to quickly identify the Ishimoku cloud. And again, I just kind of worry about, I don't really go too much into all the spans. There's a lot of other details you can use on the cloud, essentially. I mean, you got a conversion line, a baseline, lagging span. I kind of disable those just based on the fact that I like to keep it simple in my reviews. but I will kind of explain more on that. In fact, I got this question asked earlier in my Telegram community, so I'm going to make sure to address those eventually. But for now, the takeaway here is that the price action essentially needs to be above the cloud in order for it to be considered a buy signal, and then below is essentially a sell signal. So you see here, ever since it crossed this point, it's been a constant sell. So this would have been an awesome short position to take at about 8 cents or 0.083 essentially, because it came all the way down to 0.048 before it started recovering. So that being said, use the cloud on the 1 hour chart to identify potential entry points. So coincidentally, see how we marked this yellow line as the MACD, because the MACD had crossed in the 4 hour chart right here in this range. It's almost identical to what the cloud is telling us, right? So it's telling us that we have this momentum at this point. So it would have been a great entry point there, right at about 0.63. Okay, again, easier said than done now, of course, but future reference, try to look for that convergence on the MACD on the 4 hour chart and compare that with the cloud on the 1 hour and see if they match up. Oftentimes they do. All right, so that's kind of what we're looking at there. Let's look at the 15-minute. I'll leave that little line on there because that kind of tells us when things were converging essentially as kind of an indication. And what we'll do is we'll enable the EMA and the VWAP line. Now this is my favorite indicators. I actually have my own indication here. I'm going to have that available. I'm just kind of finalizing some of the details here, in other words, but I have a notification option for my EMA and VWAP to tell me when I have confirmation. I'll explain what that means here in just a moment. But first of all, the VWAP is a blue line here. That's the volume weighted average price. Tells us the volume will last 24 hours, right? And that's expressed as a price. So with the price action being right here in the state of consolidation, that's right where it should be, basically meaning that the volume and the price are matching. That's a good sign. Same with the EMA too. The EMA is this red line, this EMA 15 that I use, exponential moving average. That essentially just works with the price action. When it's above, it's bullish. When it's below, it's bearish. So right now it's kind of consolidating, so it might peak above and stay below for a little while, but once it breaks free from this consolidation phase, then you can typically find a good entry point with good confirmation. Now, good confirmation here, let's take a look. This is what's cool about this scenario here. So just say, for example, you're looking back here and we see these yellow symbols here. These yellow triangles basically tell me that we have 2 solid green bars closing above the EMA and VWAP line. And I like that because that's 30 minutes worth of confirmation. So we look at these here, 30 minutes of confirmation. So that basically tells me in that 30-minute time frame, the bulls are in control and they've gained momentum, right? Because it's above EMA and the VWAP. So I would have taken entry here based on that indicator. Price goes sideways for a little bit and we get further confirmation here. 2 more green bars above EMA and VWAP. So there's potential to maybe consider adding to your position right here. And coincidentally, if you look at this big line that I drew already, that's when the MACD had crossed on the 4-hour chart, as well as the Ishimoku cloud went ahead and did its thing. It showed you that you're above the cloud at that point, right? So these are all good indications of buy signals. So not only did you get the confirmation for EMA and VWAP, but you also get confirmation on the 4-hour chart from the MACD and the Ishimoku cloud. So this is a win-win for everyone here. So had you taken entry here, you would have been able to potentially gain somewhere in the range of, again, it all depends. That was a 33% increase. Again, that's to the top. You can never truly find the top, but that is the potential there, right? So that's the beautiful thing about that scenario. And here's a cool thing. Say you'd held on this position and you set a goal for just say 10%, you would have hit that right here on the second peak. Now, what I recommend doing, because when the RSI peaks up over 70, that's an indication to tell you that you want to consider maybe either trimming your position or just paying close attention. I pay close attention when the RSI peaks over 70. So when you see this over 70 right here, it tells me, and that's the cool thing about my indications here, which again I will share with my premium Patreon account through my signal group. This here right there, when you see the purple lines, that's basically telling you, yep, it's up over RSI, and we got the 2 solid green bars over RSI. In other words, it tells you the momentum is still carrying, but you want to pay close attention. So ideally right here, so just say, for example, if you sold right here, you would have only gained a small percent, right? So it would have been somewhere in the range of, 13%. Now that's still a good gain. Don't get me wrong. I love that. I'd be happy with a 5 to 10% gain. But you would have kind of been shorting yourself. In other words, what you do is you wait, you stay in the price, or stay in the price action here, you stay in, and you wait until see what happens with the EMA, right? The price comes over and bounces over EMA. then you know it's a good indication that you want to stay in your position and you don't want to sell. So even though the RSI is up over 70, you still don't want to sell because you want to wait for the RSI to come back down to test the EMA line and or below RSI. All right, so in this case, it came over and tested the EMA line, came back up. So you'd want to probably consider taking, taking your profit somewhere right here or somewhere right here when the RSI is coming back down under 70. Okay. So I hope I explained that correctly, or just in a way in which you can understand. But the bottom line here is that using the the MACD on the 4-hour chart to kind of experience the convergence is I guess a good step in the first direction. That's why we go from the larger time frame to the smaller. Then you look at the 1-hour chart for the Ichimoku cloud. You identify the prices over the cloud. Second buy signal. Third buy signal is to ensure that you have confirmation over EMA and VWAP, which is essentially what you see here with this yellow indicator, and or just finding 2 solid green bars above and beyond that time frame. Okay. So again, you're getting 30 minutes of confirmation that you are actually heading in the right direction. Yep. And then furthermore, of course, in order to exit your position, you wait for the price action to bounce off EMA. If it would have broke and came below and then tested the VWAP line and broke below the VWAP, you would be automatic exit your position. But oftentimes it'll come down, it'll break the EMA, bounce off VWAP, and keep going up. It's another thing to look forward to, right? Because again, these are both basically support levels working with the price action. That's the benefit of the EMA and the VWAP line. They both work together in tandem. Just keep in mind they can work the reverse as well. They can work as resistance levels too. Okay, so to kind of honor the title here for this video, in the sense that my price prediction is that Ankr will continue to progress upwards. All we need is some sideways action from Bitcoin. Somewhere in the range of 33 to 38,000, and I think Ankr will continue to progress upwards. If we can get Bitcoin to 42 and above, then it's going to be off to the races for Ankr. We're going to see 15 cents, no problem. Okay, so again, it's all contingent on Bitcoin, but also the fact of the matter is here that we've seen the most movement from Ankr here recently based on what's been going on with Bitcoin. Bitcoin isn't doing anything fantastic recently, but it is essentially recovering, and so is Ankr. Much better than majority of other coins. All right. So if you find benefit from this, please like and subscribe. Feel free to reach out through Telegram or just join my signal group. Get these signals that I send out 3 to 5 days a week, and make sure that you kind of benefit from that. Of course, my goal is to make this an easy process for you because I have more time to look at these charts than the average person, and I can identify these things a little quicker. So be on the lookout for that. Feel free to reference that in your own time. And I might recommend waiting until July 1st just so you can get the best benefit, because unfortunately Patreon doesn't really let you just go 30 days from your start. It has to go from the 1st to the end of the month. So just keep that in mind as well. Either way, I really appreciate you all. Thank you for joining me here today. We'll see you in the next video. Take care.